Tonight, tonight we're going to have another educator from different part of the world, and tonight we have a very special guest, and he is IDLTM Academic Director and Senior Trainer Andy Hockley. And when he comes, we are going to start our live session. And actually, we were talking about it, but something happened. I'm waiting for to open it. Yeah, I have it. Last week the same thing happened, not the previous week, but at the end we had the live sessions in a normal way. We're just waiting for the Instagram. It's all about the Instagram. One more time. I can see your invitation, and I have accepted. I'll try one more time. Waiting for him. I'll give one more try. It's not. I can't see your invitation. I accept it. Just a moment. So sorry for this situation, but it's not about Andy or not about us.
Okay,
It
I'm in
happened
again.
again.
It's happened again, Volkan, but I think as far as I get from last time, everyone else can see us both. It's just we can't see each other. Am I right?
Yeah.
Or maybe we should just go ahead like this. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's better than
Yeah. Hello.
hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you too. But it's actually it's so interesting for me right now because I can't see you, but
Yeah, you
only
can't see me and I can't see you, but everyone else can see us both.
all right. So okay
So,
then,
and we
if
can
it's
hear
not
each other, so that's all that's really, I mean, it's not exactly ideal from our perspective, but it's okay, I think. I mean, it's better
okay,
than nothing.
all
So,
right. So if it's not a problem for you, and we can do like that.
yeah, let's do it like this. It's better than leaving it.
All right then.
Because
Okay,
obviously
so let's do it.
it's three
Okay.
times now it didn't work, so this is better to do like this.
Okay, as you see, they said we can both hear you. We can see here and hear both of you, they say. But I think only
Uh-huh.
the problem is between our connections. Anyway, not
Yeah.
a problem. So let's start it. And Andy, so I would like to, before starting the live sessions, I would like to say thank you very much for accepting my invitation for Teacher Talks and being my guest tonight.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Happy to say yes.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. So it's better to start quickly because I don't want to take your time because I know that we are all busy. So I know about you, Andy, but maybe our followers would like to know about you. Can you tell us about yourself, please, and a bit about your experiences too?
Um, okay, well, right now, what I do is I teach and write about management in English language teaching. So management issues in English language teaching. So there's a recent book called Leading Technological Change, which I wrote. And then there's a book that came out about 10 years ago called From Teacher to Manager, another Cambridge book, which I was a co-writer of as well. So that's what I do. And I'm also working mostly on this course called the IDLTM, the International Diploma in
Uh-huh.
Language Teaching Management, as a management trainer for basically people in language education. So people in universities, people in private language schools, people in state schools who are in a management role in our world.
Wow.
My background is I've been doing this a long time, English teaching. So I started, so I did something called the RSA certificate, which is like the CELTA, only it was before the CELTA.
Mm.
So that's how old it is. That's
Wow.
how old I am. So I went to a conference before COVID that there was the 30th anniversary of CELTA, and
Wow.
I realized that I've been doing this more than 30 years, therefore.
Yes.
So I've traveled a lot. I've lived in a lot of countries, including Turkey. I recognize most of the people in this room are from Turkey. So I lived in Bursa in
Oh,
1990, 91, 92, I think, for a year in Bursa, and I've lived in many different countries apart from that, and I've worked in a number of different countries. And last year I was lucky enough to also work in Izmir at Yashar University for
great.
7 months at the beginning of last year. So
Wonderful.
that's kind of what I've been doing. So I've been doing lots of teacher training, lots of management training, and obviously before that, I was an English teacher
Mm-hmm.
in
Got
different
it.
countries.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's really great, and I hope you like the Bursa, by the way. It's a really nice city and great city.
I did, although it was a strange. I went back about 5 years ago, and I couldn't believe how because I was there in '91, and I think it was about 400,000 people,
Yeah,
and now it's like 3 million or something.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's a bit of a change.
It's a huge city now. Okay, then. Thank you very much, Andy. Let's move to another question. What was over your turning point or points in your own education?
Um, I'm not sure how many turning points there were. I mean, my
You
education,
had
I
a
feel
lot.
like my education came from doing things rather than from studying them almost. So, I mean, when I was at school, my turning points were teachers, good teachers and bad. I remember good teachers and I remember bad teachers, and I don't remember the ones who neither didn't leave an impression on me. Um, but I think the biggest turning point, I would say, well, partly was becoming an English teacher, doing this course, the RSA certificate, which was the precursor to the CELTA, just because it was so practical and so intensive, and nothing in my previous education experience had uh, had given me had been that way. Basically, had given me the so everything I did to find this to be in this situation where I was doing a course which was like intense, practical, hands-on in the classroom was tough. And then I think years after that, when I just went to do an MA, I did my MA in the US, and I that was like that experience is sort of okay. Being an adult and going in
Uh-huh.
education is different from being a child and being in education, or and I think even as a bachelor in a bachelor's degree, when you're 18, 19, you're kind of a child. So so being an adult and loving learning and think, oh, I can learn all these different things and I can study, and I was really excited that I get to study all these things. So I think those were my biggest turning points
Mm-hmm.
in education. But really, it's putting those things into practice and working on them that feels like the more
I
of my
see.
education than
Mm-hmm.
actually being in a classroom, if you
I got
like.
it. I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy, for sharing that points with us. Let's move to another question. Andy, and you have been teaching for a long time, by the way, and just that you said you changed it, and now you are doing this with the managers, with the directors you are dealing with. And when you think about your, the teaching time, probably you have used different strategies, different techniques and methodologies, and you applied them in your lessons. So, and probably you have a philosophy of teaching. So, what is it? What is your philosophy of teaching?
I think my philosophy, I mean, it sounds like a cliche to say
Yeah.
that my philosophy of teaching is student centered, but I think that's what my philosophy is, in the sense that when you're in when you're in a classroom or a training room even, so I mean in any kind of educational context, it's not about
Mm-hmm.
you, it's about them, it's about the students and about where they are and how you can help them to learn and how you can kind of uh, tune in to them, if you
Mm-hmm.
like, hear them and listen to them and be aware of what it is that they're trying to do, what is they're failing at doing, what is it they're succeeding at doing, and so on. So I think I mean, it sounds strange to say student centered, but it is that to me. It's something about empathy and learning and being with the students, being present.
I see. Mm-hmm. I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much for the philosophy. Thank you. And so let's move to another question. Would you like to add anything else,
No,
or
I think that,
is that all?
but I guess that's my philosophy.
I see. All right, perfect. So, as a teachers or trainers, the probably who have some, the success stories, and sometimes we have failed stories, or the bad or good stories we have. And if you have, and can you tell us one or two success stories of yours, which something inspirational? If
Yeah, I mean, you sent me this question. I find it difficult to answer because I don't have memories of like little anecdotes
uh-huh,
which are a success story. It's more like kind of ongoing
sure.
things. So it's kind of being recognized feels my perspective like a success story, but it's more seeing the effect of my work on others. Is kind of is where I get that feeling of success, feeling like I can see,
Mm-hmm.
as a teacher trainer, for example, when I can see teachers click and become really good teachers. And I know I didn't make that happen, they made that happen, but I was there and I helped in some way. And there's the same, a little bit the same with managers, kind of hearing managers talk about how they experience things and what they're thinking of and what they're challenged by, and then hearing them come to really good, useful conclusions. Those feel like my success stories, which I don't feel like they're my success stories. They're the success stories of the people I work with, really.
I understand. Okay. Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you. And so I would like to ask you another question. It's something related with the book, I think, that you have written, which is like leading the technological change.
Yes.
So can you tell us about that book little bit? So what was your aim with this book?
Well, it seems to. I mean, I mean, like you said, I've been in this industry a long time, in this profession a long time. So, and I really, since I started being an English teacher, methodology hasn't changed dramatically. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I learned to be an English teacher, which is now 35 years ago, we talked about the communicative methodology. So there isn't really, I mean, there have been little things have changed, little additions to this have changed, but in frankly, the methodology hasn't changed. And what's changed for most people, most teachers, and most managers is
Yeah.
technology
Uh-huh.
more than methodology, I think, especially in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, there hasn't been much methodological change. There's been technological change. And it is clear, it was clear to me that managers struggle with
I see.
how do I assimilate all this information and make the right decision for my school, well, for my teachers and for my students. So that was really where the book comes from, is this idea that we need to um, I felt like managers need some kind of tools to look at their own schools and
Uh-huh.
be supportive of their teachers' ability to think about what they needed and what would make their jobs better, what would make their students learning
Yeah.
better. So
I
it's
see.
not being told from above, okay, you need to buy some software. It's like, okay, let's find out from the teachers what it is they would really like to be able to do, and can we answer that question? Is there a technological solution that will help with that? So it's sort of trying to help them go through that process of making those difficult decisions. And those decisions, technological decisions, are quite difficult because things change so fast, and also because spending money is a big deal.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or even applying to someone else to say we need to spend this money is a big deal. So that's kind of that's where the book comes from. And the idea of the book is to sort of like support managers, but really in supporting teachers and supporting schools in thinking about how do you listen to the
Mm-hmm.
teachers and the students and work out what
Mm-hmm.
would be the best technological solutions
I see.
for our needs going forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like to ask you another questions, something related with the book. What is the most important thing for managers and directors of teaching organizations to bear in mind when working with teachers?
Um, Let me think. I'd say the important thing is to trust them. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
I
really
think
important.
what there is a tendency, and this is not a problem with education. This is a problem with all professions actually. Is there's a tendency to we go through this long process of hiring people who we know can do the job. We can see that they've got the qualifications and the experience and the background in order to be able to teach. In our case, to teach. and we we choose competent, reliable people who we think are capable and able to do the job we want them to do, which is to go in the classroom and teach. And then we have this tendency to stop trusting them the moment we've hired them. And it's not just us; it's all professions, I think, do this, where they hire people and they hire adults and then they treat them like children. And I think what I think is what we should do is trust teachers first and foremost, but see your role as a manager as how can I support them to do the best job, and that support
Exactly.
might involve some kind of training. It might not just be I'm here for you. It may be okay. I can see that you have a problem here. You need some help with this, so here's some training. Or I might want to challenge you a bit or push you a little bit. So it's not that kind of support is not just about kind of sitting there and going, okay, you get on with it, you're fine. It's about something where we challenge and we push and we support and we train and help, but fundamentally we trust them. And
I
then
got it.
maybe there's other duties that teachers have. That's where maybe conversations can happen. But
I
their
see.
primary task, the task of teaching, you hired them because they were good at their job. Let them do their job.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, really.
Okay. I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. So let me ask you another question. Again, something related with the teachers. In your opinion, Andy, what is the most rewarding aspect of teaching teachers and helping them improve their skills in English language interaction?
Most rewarding part of teaching teachers. I'm actually going through your questions. I made some notes. I need to remember which question was this one.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Okay. Um, so it certainly sometimes it depends on context. So
Uh-huh.
if I'm working with new teachers who actually have never been in a classroom before,
Uh-huh.
uh, and teachers in certain places, maybe certain parts of the world, a lot of what is rewarding is kind of opening their eyes to look. This is what a classroom can look like. This is how education. This is how people learn. That
I
kind of
see.
realization in people's when you see that kind of light come on, go, oh yeah, this is. I've never thought about how people learn, and therefore how does that affect the way I teach? So for brand new teachers like that, and for teachers whose only experience of a classroom is very teacher centered,
Mm-hmm.
I I think the rewarding thing is that kind of that when you see that light come on, that realization that yeah, actually the students are involved in this process. They're not just passive recipients of me telling them things. They're an active participant. So I think that
Yes.
is really rewarding when you see that see that light come on. Um, yeah, I think that's the biggest one. I mean,
I
obviously there
see.
are
Mm-hmm.
there are other parts of teacher training which are, and not everyone I do teacher training with is a new teacher or a teacher who's not kind of experienced at all. So with those teachers, it's obviously it's a slightly different thing, but it's again it's a little bit like that realization that we move past kind of
I see.
step by
Uh-huh. I
step by
got.
step work. I mean, I think one of the things that I really notice when when sort of let's call them young teachers,
Oh,
or
okay. Mm-hmm.
not necessarily young in age, but young in the classroom experience, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there comes a point where they move past following their lesson plan and they start teaching the students,
Yes.
which is slightly interesting. It sounds odd to say that, but I think that's what happens. That people they learn the skill, they learn the kind of this is what I do next, this is what I do next, this is what I do next. Those kind of these steps of teaching, and then they reach the point where they've got that, and they go, "Aha, yeah! Now actually, I'm here with the
Yeah.
students. Those are the people that make this work."
Mm-hmm. I got it. I see. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andy. Thank you. So let's move to another question then. And probably so far you have given lots of training sessions or presentations
Yeah.
or etc. So what was or were the most interesting situation or situations that you faced?
Well, I mean, there are tons tons of odd things that have happened in my
I think
life,
so.
in my teaching career, my training career, and so on. And I was trying to think, what are those interesting situations? And I mean, I have ones where I'm in the classroom and something happens which I didn't expect, or in the training room, something which I didn't expect, and I have to somehow adapt to that. But usually it's something I can learn from that. I remember this one time about, it must be about 20 years ago. I had a group of managers, teaching a group of managers. We were in Barcelona, and I asked them to, this was the very first day of the course, and I asked them to do this task, which was essentially a warm up, an icebreaker task. And one of them
Mm-hmm.
said, "Why?" And it's like I said, "Can you do this?" And his answer was, "Why?" And and my first reaction was I was a bit surprised. I mean, they were all people from ELT. They're all been English teachers, and they all. I mean, I figured that they knew why you do this kind of thing. But I thought, okay, so I thought about it, and I answered, "This is the reason why we're doing this." And they said, "Okay, I don't want to do that."
Ah, come
Well,
on.
this is really really interesting. I've never had this experience before. So but to be challenged about why, this is an important question. Why are we doing this? I mean, I do think it's an important question. I mean, I think he wasn't necessarily asking it because he wanted me to learn. He was asking it because he was a bit awkward, frankly. But that was the kind of it was a learning experience. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have sort of interesting experience. I mean, there was one time when I was in Nepal, doing some work for the British Council
Yes,
in Nepal, and they said, "Oh, can you come and do a training session we're opening our new library. Can you do a training session at the British Council for some teachers from state schools?"
great.
And I said, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sure, there's no problem." And they said something about teaching grammar. So I came up with this like 1 hour, because it was an evening, sort of 1 or 2 hour training session about teaching grammar. And expect, and I made a few copies and I had some things hanging out, expecting to have about 20 people. And literally there was about 200 people in this room. And
Wow.
it was like they were kind of crammed. I could barely see them, and I was like, "How am I going to handle it?" And so, but dealing with that was really fun, actually. Kind of like coming up with adapting what I'd come up with to this huge group of people who'd all shown up for this. It was basically a free workshop for state school teachers, and of course, people were desperate. They wanted stuff.
That,
So that was kind of an interesting and fun experience. It was a bit
yeah.
scary at the start, but it turned out into a fun one.
It's really surprising. Probably it was really surprising for you to see you were expecting 20 people and then suddenly you saw that the 200 people in front of
I mean, the
you.
room was
So that's really,
completely packed. It just couldn't see anything.
I can understand. So it's really, but thank you very much, Andy, for sharing these experiences with us. You know, what I'm gonna ask you next, like, is about some technological developments about, it's not easy to follow us, the stay updated with the latest developments and trends in education. We really face difficulties sometimes to follow them. But how do you do that? How do you stay updated with the latest development and trends in education?
Well, partly it's by reading. I mean, reading articles and reading things that I find, sort of either sort of, let's call them magazines, journals, and etc. Partly it's through following links that people share online, um,
Uh-huh.
and partly attending conferences. And sometimes actually doing the job. I mean, I rarely do teacher training anymore, and I rarely do teaching anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Although last year when I was in Izmir and Yashar, I did just do some teaching for the first time for a while. But when I'm doing management, actually doing management. So like this summer, I was working in Cambridge for the summer, managing a teacher training academy. So actually experiencing it and thinking, okay, that's something that's new to me, and I need to work that out. So I needed to kind of go away and look into it and find out what it was. So it's reading really, and
Yeah.
occasionally attending conferences. That's basically how I do that,
How you do that?
and talking to people.
Mm-hmm. Talking to people, I see. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. And what I'm gonna ask you about next, it's about the teachers. Like, if teachers have become disillusioned with their job, what would you say to them? What should they do?
Uh, okay, well, first of all, I think it happens quite often that people become disillusioned. It can be difficult. I know. I know most of the people in here now are in Turkey, and I know that economically things are difficult. The financial situation is difficult, and that
Exactly.
makes it hard, I think. Um, and so, I think first of all that it's understandable that sometimes people become disillusioned and think, sort of maybe question, why am I doing this? What's is this the right thing I'm doing,
Yeah.
or feeling a little bit stuck
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. You have a bad class or a bad week or whatever, and you just think, oh, this is.
Yes.
But I think that the reason we the reason we became teachers, or maybe the reason we remained teachers, after a couple of uh, after a year or two, we stuck with teaching and we realized that teaching was for us, is because we felt this kind of this commitment, this service. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you're doing something for people. You're meeting people's needs. You're it's a real, it's a job with purpose. It's a job with a real you 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 don't necessarily get much money from it. In fact,
No,
sadly, you
exactly.
don't get much money from it. But the rewards come somewhere else. The rewards come in that feeling like I've done something. I've supported these students, whoever your students are. I've I've helped them. I've helped them grow. I've helped them learn. So I
Mm-hmm.
think reminding yourself of that, taking a step back and thinking, well, why do I do this? And reminding it's because inevitably, like any job, it becomes a job. And a job means that you get up on Monday morning and you go to work and you come home on Friday evening and you're a bit tired and you have the weekend or whenever the time that you work is. And that becomes a routine, and a routine becomes kind of less appealing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a step back and you think, well, why is it that I do this? What is it I get from this? And remind yourself of all the times that you helped people. Remind yourself of all the things that really worked for you, and remind yourself of those moments, those joyful moments that you had as a teacher from helping students. I think
I see.
that's what you need to do. And obviously, if you can't do that, if you can't feel any joy in it, then maybe it's time to not be a teacher anymore and do something else. But I think most of us still have that service feeling in us.
Mm-hmm. I see. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. By the way, just now you talk about the book, your book, Leading Technological Change. I forgot to ask you if they want to get the book, how they can get it and where they can buy it. So is it possible to tell us how can they do that?
Well, it's a Cambridge University Press book, so it would be whoever is your local distributor for Cambridge University Press. So I actually don't know who that is. Um, but that would be, uh, obviously you can order it online, but I know like in Turkey that's difficult to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's difficult to get things from overseas. But yeah, you can, whoever is your Cambridge University Press distributor, and I can't remember who it is in Turkey.
There are
Um,
many,
yeah,
but it depends on
but
where the
that
region.
would be,
Mm-hmm.
I would ask them and just say, how would I get hold of this book? And there's within the series, because it's a series, I'm the series editor of 3 books. So there's Leading Technological Change. There's another one called Cultivating Teacher Wellbeing, about wellbeing for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one
That's really
hasn't yet
important
been
point.
released, but the third one is about professional development, supporting professional development for teachers. So that one is due out in the next few months, I think.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. So we can get them from Cambridge University Press. I see. Your representative. All right then. So let's move to another question. My next question is about well-being. That's really important topic. So what role does well-being play in all of the work of a teacher and manager?
I think. well-being is a topic which has come somewhat recently come to the fore. It's not been, we didn't talk about it a lot
Yes.
even 5 years ago. It's quite modern, quite new. I mean, well-being itself has gone on as existed all this time, but the discussion of well-being seems to be quite a new thing. And I think it's important for us because of what I said earlier about how this is a commitment and how this is a service. We
Yes.
do
Mm-hmm.
maybe have the tendency to over push ourselves, to be a little bit, think, well, my students need me, so I've got to push myself. I've got to push myself. And people even, I mean, I know a lot of teachers actually go to work when they shouldn't go to work because they're actually not well, and they should, take the day off, but they feel like I can't because my students need me. So I think sometimes we do have a tendency to push ourselves too hard. So I think that's why well-being is very, very important. And I think also, so as a manager, as academic manager, you are partially, not much, but
Yes.
partially responsible for the well-being of the teachers as well as yourself. And as a teacher, you're partially responsible for the well-being of your students. And I think it's always important to be aware that you have to take care of your own first. So as a manager, you need to be aware of your own well-being, making sure that that you take care of your own well-being first, so that you can then help the teachers. And likewise, teachers need to be really conscious of their own well-being and their own making sure that they're looking after themselves and they're feeling those moments of happiness and joy and pride and recognition and all of those things
Exactly.
that we get that give us
Mm-hmm.
well-being, so that then they can be aware of their students' needs and be listening to their students and seeing when students are struggling. So I think
Mm-hmm. I
that's
see.
the big thing I would say about
I
well-being.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy, for the answer for the question. And there's a question, I missed it. Azra is asking, she's asking, do you have any favorite books to tell us, or novels, or movie to follow or to watch? Or that's the question she asked.
Um, yeah, my books.
Ah, that's then a great answer. Your books, yeah. You can read your books. Why not?
No, I mean it's a big question. I mean, there's lots of books I love, lots of novels I love, lots of films I love, and I mean, it could change every week. When I see a new film or I read a new book, I'm like, oh, this is fantastic, and then the next week I've read a new book, and that's my new book. So I'm not sure it's easy to answer that question, really.
I got it. All right then. Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's move to another question. By the way, time flies, Andy. Just two, three questions left. I hope
Okay,
you're not bored, by the way,
I'm fine.
because of the
Thanks.
because of the
Shame I can't see you,
screen
but
problem.
but it's fine.
It's like if actually it's kind of a video call, but it becomes just like a phone call. But anyway, it's not a problem. They can see us, but we can't see
They
each
can see
other.
us, but
But
we can't see each other. That's
yeah.
fine. Yeah, yeah.
All right then. So let's move to another question. Andy, it's sometimes there are some uh, hard times we have, and when that hard time comes, we say, "Oh, I wish I could that power, so I could do this easily, or I could do that easily." Okay. So when you think about this for the classrooms, actually, if you let me ask, if you could have one superpower to use in the classroom, what would it be, and how would it help you?
Yeah, when you sent me this question, I thought to myself, well, obviously the obvious superpower that a language teacher would like to have is, like in the Matrix, where you can upload knowledge and skills into people's brains, and they don't actually have to sort of go through any of that difficult learning process. They just upload it. And then I realized I wouldn't like that, because I do like the classroom dynamic. I do like the idea that people come together and learn from each other and
Uh-huh.
study with each other. It's a community of a sort in the classroom, and I would miss that if I could just upload knowledge to people's heads. Although maybe that's just that's my problem, that I should just be able to do that. So I do like that idea that, I guess, um, I I think the superpower I'd like to have is to kind of constantly be able to remind everybody in the classroom, teacher and all the students, of the need to be completely respectful of one another and respectful of each other's needs,
Uh-huh.
and be supportive of one another. So I think it's something like that. I mean, an easier one would be to upload things like the Matrix, but
That's really nice.
I
Your
like the
power.
classroom. I would hate to lose the classroom, just because you could upload stuff. So I think it would be nice if this kind of this atmosphere of mutual respect and support could just be everywhere, like flooding the classroom.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. There is another question, Andy, by the way. I think it's Hajar is asking. Uh, she's asking, have you ever had students who couldn't focus? And did you have a common solution for these situations?
Have I ever had students who couldn't focus? Yes, of course. I think we all
Well,
have.
what did you that?
Um, I think, well, partly it depends on the students, depends on why they can't focus. Is it something to do with the time of day? Is it something to do with their age? Is it something to do with uh, other factors? I mean, because it could be something that's outside the room, and if so, that might cause you to think of one or two other things. I mean, like, people who could just been to lunch usually struggle to focus. But, so time of day makes a difference. The environment of the classroom makes a difference. What it looks like, how dark it is, and all of those things can make a difference. So that's partly the problem. And then also there's, maybe it's nothing to do with time of day or nothing to do with all those things. It's just related to um, it's something else. And I think sometimes the solution to that is something to do with pacing, trying to make things move a bit more rapidly, and being aware and being conscious of what seems to be reaching people or not. But I also think it's about discussing with the students. Maybe this doesn't work if your students are 5 or 6 years
Mm,
old, but
I
if
see.
they're university students or adults or older teenagers or whatever, discuss with them. Talk. I mean, they're human beings. I mean,
Mm,
if they can't focus, what is going on? What is the problem? Can we come up with
definitely.
a solution together? And I think in general, we don't necessarily talk enough and discuss and kind of negotiate things enough in the classroom, and talk to them about learning and how learning happens and what they can do to enhance their own learning.
hmm I see. Thank you very much for your answer, Andy. Thank you. Okay, so let's just another two questions left. Okay, so let's move to another question. Andy, how do you see yourself in 10 years? Will you still be a trainer or try another job?
Maybe I'll retire. Uh, no, I
That's
could be. I
nice.
suppose. No, no, I don't think I'll retire. I mean, theoretically, I could be retired in 10 years. Um, but I enjoy what I do, and I like to think I'm quite good at it.
Uh-huh.
So I would like to still be able to do it. I mean, if I feel like I'm not, if I feel like I don't have anything to offer, then I'll stop. But if I
Uh-huh.
feel like I have something to offer and I can help people in some way, then I'd like to keep going. So
I
I
got it.
I don't think I'll be doing a different job really. I might be doing some slightly different way of doing the same job I'm doing now, but I don't think it will be very different, honestly.
Okay, you're not gonna try different job. The job that you have right now, that's I think the greatest one, I think. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. Okay, so let's move to the last question, Andy.
The
So,
last
are you ready
question.
for it?
All right,
O-
hit me with the last
Okay,
question.
okay. What is your motto?
Yeah, I don't have a motto exactly, because I think if you have a motto, it kind of has to govern all parts of your life, and I'm not sure I have something that does that. But I came up with
Uh-huh.
two things. Um, One is a management. The thing about management, which is a quote I love, which is from a management writer called Peter Drucker, which is there's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which shouldn't be done at all. So
Mm-hmm.
it's great if you do things very, very efficiently, but if you don't actually need to do that job, then you're kind of wasting everybody's time. So that's one motto. And the other one, and I think this one really kind of gets to what I think about education, and how. So for me, all my career, one of the primary places where I learn, is one of the questions you asked me earlier, is actually from teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So
I see.
when I teach, I learn. I learn from all the students, and I also learn from the act of teaching. Almost helps me to learn things or train. Act of training. And there's a great quote from Rumi, the poet, which is, um, "Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment." And I
Mm.
think that's for me. The idea is that I mean, we all have knowledge, we all have stuff, but actually, it's important to remember that we still don't know. And I think the idea of sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment, actually you'll learn so much more if you feel bewildered. So much of life I feel bewildered. So yes, sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment.
That's
That's my motto.
so great. Thank you. Thank you very much for the two mottos and the mottos that you share with us. Okay. And that's all my questions, Andy. And before ending our live sessions, would you like to add anything else?
I I don't think so, really. I mean, a lot. It's been really fun talking to you and kind of having the opportunity to think about what I do, because actually your questions made me think those things, and I think that's a really cool thing for anyone to do. So even if Volkan is not interviewing you, ask yourself some of those questions. Who am I as a teacher? What do I believe in? All of those questions that he asked me, I think are really useful questions for you to step back and think about as a teacher, because they help you to reflect and think about those things. So
Wonderful.
it's been fun for me to be here, but it's also been useful for me to think about those questions and think, well, what is it that I think? What is it, my philosophy? What do I believe in? And how do I interpret the classroom and how those things work?
Mm-hmm. I see. Thank you very much. It's really great to hear these things from you, Andy. Really, thank you very much. And by the way, there's another question, if you can see it. And Hajar is asking if you have enough time. I want to ask another question. I think we have. Let me ask you, how do you evaluate language education in Turkey? Do you think there are any deficiencies or excesses in this regard?
Um, I feel slightly uncomfortable answering the question, because you know far more about language education in Turkey than I do.
Sure.
Pretty much everyone in this room knows way more about language education in Turkey than I do. So it feels like it's a little bit odd to ask this someone from outside who has a small picture of education in Turkey, which is nothing like your picture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And my experience, obviously, my first experience was 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago now.
Wow.
So I don't think necessarily that's true anymore. I mean, what I learned about language education in Bursa amongst adults, because I was
Uh-huh.
teaching adults 30 years ago, is probably doesn't have
A
much
lot
bearing on now.
changed. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I have been coming to Turkey quite a lot over the last 10 years or so. And like I said, I was 7 or 8 months in Yasha in Izmir last year. And think, uh, um, I think there is a challenge between, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's nothing. The language education in Turkey is good, I think. I mean, really good. And I think the teachers are fantastic. And I think the structures are quite good. And actually, the rest of the world is learning a lot from Turkey, because there are so many. I mean, especially within the kind of the foundation programs and the English medium instruction universities and so on. There's so many students in Turkey learning English at any one time, and so
I
many people
see.
teaching, that a lot of, a lot of research, a lot of knowledge about teaching is coming from Turkey at the moment, because I think Turkey is so up there amongst sort of language education.
Yeah.
I think I think one of the problems, or maybe the biggest problem, and maybe this is where I feel uncomfortable answering because I'm not sure if this is true, is that there is a large focus, a too large focus, and I'm not sure this is a fault of language teachers, but this is a fault of the system, the focus on exams, and everything is exam, exam, exam,
Yeah,
exam,
exactly.
and and everything becomes kind of beholden to these exams, and it's sort of like the students just care about what's on the exam. Everybody thinks the important thing is to pass exams, whereas the important thing is to learn. And so I think that's where I see something that I wish could be changed, but I think it's probably ingrained in the system, and I don't think it's something which is the fault of language education or language teachers or language teaching managers. I think it's something that's deeply in the education system of Turkey in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure that can be changed, but I think that's one thing I've noticed. That's one thing I've noticed that But like I say,
I
you
see.
know way more than I do about what language education in Turkey is
I
like.
see. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. Yeah, for your answer for the question. Okay, then. So I think that's all. That's all our my questions and our audience questions, and that's all I think.
All right.
Okay. So
Thanks very much.
and you are welcome. And I would like to say one more time, Andy, like for being with us here and for your suggestions, for your advice, and especially the most important thing is you spend your time with us here. That was really important for us. Okay. Thank you very much one more time.
All right.
And Andy Hockley was with us tonight with Teacher Talks under 34. So and we had a really fruitful session with him. We talked a lot of topics with him, and also we are going to be here again next week on the same day at the same time, as you know that every Monday at 9 p.m. Don't forget to don't forget the day and time for the next week. And until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, Andy. And bye
Okay.
bye, everybody.
You too.
And peace.